Alrighty, to sum up the entire plot, our name's Jason, our frog got mutated, fell into the earth, we found a tank, time to kick some mutant ass. Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play Blaster Master. Fun fact, and I know this will please at least one of you, this is technically, in terms of gameplay, my first fully blind Let's Play. Well, past Area 1 at least. Because I did test it out to make sure everything worked out right. So, I don't really have much information on this one, honestly. I know my brother used to play this all the time, and I do own it on the Virtual Console, but like I said, I've only beaten the first area. Basic controls are rather standard for the NES. Control pad to move, B to fire, A to jump. Our tank here, I think it's called Sophia the Third. It starts out pathetically weak, but I know for a fact it gets stronger. Yeah. Start will bring up your pause screen where you can select special weapons for the tank. I know for a fact that you have to find those. There's one in this area, but I don't go for it. Down that ladder is technically something, but I'm not going to show it off, because it's not required. Because while this is blind, I am using a walkthrough on GameFAQs, because, there's no way I'm playing a game that's this difficult without a guide. In fact, every now and then you'll hear the music cut in and out because I'm actually checking the guide. Now, one thing I'm going to say right off the bat, because I actually did go on to YouTube to look up the full soundtrack to choose the intro song, this game's soundtrack is kick-ass. And it's here that I should explain one other thing. If you press select, you actually leave your tank. Swimming controls are rather weird, actually. When you're on the ground and when you're in underwater, you press A to start swimming, but then you just use the D-pad to continually swim, which is kind of weird. B is still fire and A is still jump, though. If you're also the person, his name is Jason, as I mentioned earlier, if you press select in front of the tank, you actually will go back into it. You press A to go onto ladders, which is kind of weird for me, but swimming's actually kind of faster. And you're gonna notice I have trouble getting into this place because I don't realize what the control is. I'm used to it being up to enter doors on the NES, but it's actually down, weirdly enough. And welcome to the run and gun segments. On these segments, the D-pad obviously still move, but only B is fire. A is instead the grenade weapon, which is extremely useful against certain bosses, I know for a fact. The little things on the side, bottom left there, the POW is our life bar, whereas the gun will actually is pretty much our gun's power. The more little gun power-ups we find in the little underground cabins here, the more you find. And the little P icons that enemies and other things will drop occasionally is pretty much our recovery hearts. Glowing P emblems like that are much greater restores, though. And I can tell you right now, this game is ball-bustingly hard. To the point where when I was actually looking up the plot summary so I could say that little summary there in the beginning, I realized that the game was praised for its graphical awesomeness, awesome music, awesome overallness. That could have been so much better explained, but high difficulty was the only real complaint. And I agree, because normally when I play games I usually don't die much, at least when it comes to recording them, because I play ones I know. But the upcoming boss, I died so many times that I nearly got a game over. Luckily, that's what cutting's for. Also, in terms of how I learned about this game, actually, it wasn't even through my brother, actually. Even though he played this game a lot, I didn't learn about it until, I think, the 25th anniversary of the NES issue of Nintendo Power. May that magazine rest in peace. Also, these enemies right here remind me of a certain enemy from Final Fantasy IV, and I'm not sure why. Well, I do know why. It's because of the metal faces. So yeah, glowing P icons give you more life. Now, in terms of these little cabin things, there are lots you can enter in the main overworld, but you're not required to enter most of them. I'm only going where the guide tells me to, so yeah. And time for the first boss. Mother Brain! How many games have that thing? Seriously. What I'm doing here is an abuse I know for a fact works on the bosses of levels 2, 4, 6, and I think 7. If you use the grenade and then pause the game, wait for around 25 seconds, it does a ton of damage and can actually kill them. I know I'll be abusing that. Mother Brain, though, for attacks, doesn't really have much. All I'm assuming it's she, because Metroid, can do is touch damage and have her little options? I'm not sure what to call those things. I'm gonna call them options because Gradius. Fly around and hit you. The bosses in this game are actually probably one of the hardest things because, well, as I said earlier, I died a lot to this thing off-screen. And that's an upgrade! The entire reason you go into these certain cabins is to get upgrades for either yourself or the tank, which I still believe is called the Sophia. That one I know for a fact was, I think it's called the Hyper Beam, so another Metroid comparison there. And that pretty much ups our tank's cannon power. It used to do 1 damage now, it used to do 1 damage, now it does around 2. At least that's the way I see it. In terms of the developer, oh, first off, totally not Metroids, by the way. In terms of the developer, this was actually made by Sunsoft Studios, who is infamous for, well, famous and infamous for making very difficult games back on the NES. I know for a fact they made the Batman game, which, while fun, is also incredibly hard. In fact, I'm actually going to look up what games they made, see if I recognize any others. You've also actually needed this hyper cannon to get past a certain mutant, which is actually blocking your way to the left here. There are hyper missiles, which are another weapon type for the tank down below, but I think it's for the tank at least. But I'm not going for them. And this is the mutant that you needed the hyper cannon for, or at least I think you needed it for. Let's see, Sunsoft, what did they make? By the way, those little beeps that you hear are actually these little things that I'm next to. They are mines. Actually, the tank itself cannot hit them. What you have to do is actually press select and actually use Jason's gun in order to take them down. But welcome to Area 2 with its annoying caterpillars. Area 2 here is very castle-themed, I can tell you that for a fact. The spikes do a lot of damage, and the lava later on will as well. Let's see. Okay, I got a Sunsoft page up. Let's see what they made. Do I recognize anything? Let's see. Batman for the Genesis, really? NES, Game Boy, TurboGrafx 16, Return of the Joker. They made the entire Blaster Master series, which is 7 games, actually. Clock Tower 3, really? Huh. Fester's Quest, oh god. Ooh, they made Final Fantasy Adventure in the Final Fantasy Legends series, that's a good one. Me researching while recording, that's how I do stuff. They made Lemmings. Oh god, Lemmings. Anything else I recognize? Nothing much, actually. Yeah, that's it. That's all I recognize. The lava here, actually, I know for a fact, due to the guide I'm using, does about 2 damage every 7/10 of a second. The guy whose guide I'm using went really in-depth. It's actually... This game actually doesn't have that many guides on GameFAQs, so I didn't really have much of an option when it came to choosing one. I think there's only 2 of them, and then there's a map of the first area. Thankfully, though, the tank can aim up, but as you might notice, it actually goes diagonal for a split second when it's aiming up, but it cannot fire diagonally, from what I can tell so far, at least. And that's a musical cut, so you can tell I checked the guide there. Ow. In the other cabins, though, you can probably find quite a few gun power-ups, which is how you power up your gun, obviously. I might actually enter an optional one next part, just to show it off. Thankfully, though, health drops are rather common, from what I can tell. There might be some audio desync. Yes, there is. I know what I'm fixing. Mind you, by the time you guys see this desync is probably gone completely. You see, if this was a game I knew, I wouldn't be wandering around like that. I do think those things on the floor below are indeed some sort of spike, so they will hurt you. Actually, a good way to tell if something's an enemy in this game is if it's green. Green? Gray. If it's gray and moving, you generally kind of want to shoot it. There is actually one nice little thing I want to talk about when it comes to later in the game that I know about, because I know for a fact that this game had one enemy sprite that was censored due to, reasons that you guys probably know if you look this stuff up like I do in your spare time when you're bored. Down here to the right is actually not only a pretty much full restore, but also a lightning icon. That is a weapon that I don't know what it does. There will be some experimentation in this, I can tell you that for a fact. And right over here is the next required area, or cabin, that you need to go into. And we're in it. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, rate, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And next time on Let's Play Blaster Master, I'm not sure if I should say Blaster Master Blind or just call it that, we'll be going into this next area and seeing what we can find in here. See you guys then. Oh God, help me.